Okay. Hi, this is McLaughlin. This is my reflective vlog. This will be covering week 7 of my film and TV course, specifically the F&P week. Just before we get into the actual tasks, just a bit of housekeeping. I'm currently very ill, making this reflective vlog kind of difficult to do. So usually I would edit quite a bit in this reflective vlog. I'd break it up, I would add an effect and stuff like that. Just for this week only, I'm not going to do that because I want to get this done. I'm feeling pretty ill and stuff like that. So there won't be as much glitz and glamour, but I'll try to go a bit more in detail. If I throw up or anything like that, I will obviously cut it. So sorry if it gets a bit glitchy, but I'm pretty sure I'll be all right. A new thing I'm doing is I'm basically, I've got a timer going. So I'm going to tap it every time I get to the sections. That means when I go onto YouTube, I will show you what I'm talking about on this reflective log here, for example. On YouTube, I can set, get a bit better, I can set tags to the sections. I usually do it by date. This will make it easier to time it out. Going into the dates, planning week was a bit weird of a week because usually how I do tasks is, so usually I do it is Wednesday I'll have a task, Thursday I'll have a task, Friday I'll have a task. That's how it traditionally works. And that's how I probably work next week, experimentation. But this week, planning, how I work, and I talked about this before last week, is I work a bit weird. I tend to work on multiple things at once. This is how I naturally do it. So, for example, storyboards are done in conjunction with the shot list, risks, and things like that. And that meant that basically it's incredibly hard to pace when I actually done which day. And I don't want to sit here and just lie to you, like, oh, I don't know, Wednesday. So what we're going to do instead is I'm going to go through the tasks. We're going to talk a bit about problem solving, and I'll do my usual advantage, target review, and target at the end. Just as I said, this won't be divided up into things. I'm going to use this counter basically to tap it every time we go into a different section, make it a bit easier for me on YouTube. So let's go into the first task. You might remember last week I talked about experimentation. I talked about experimentation. I actually got the second experimentation done. So you might remember last week, I only got this experimentation done. This second experimentation I got done was the storyboards. So I do storyboards two ways. Drawn storyboards are more traditional. This was pretty easy, it didn't have many issues and stuff like that. It was actually pretty easy to use. I've done this before. It helped me work out a bit more about it and stuff like that. The second one I looked at was an app called Previz Pro. As you can see in the pictures, Previz Pro turns out it's not a very good app. I use Previz Pro because Unreal Engine was too difficult to use, and I read from research that Previz Pro was the best. As you can see, I talked about this a lot in my things, so I won't repeat myself, but it's not a good program, and it did run into a lot of problems. So let's get into that. The worst problem I had was the app didn't work as well as I thought. I read reviews and stuff like that, and according to reviews, it's very easy to use. It turned out on it, it wasn't very good. So I basically looked up a bunch of YouTube tutorials for that kind of better understand it. As you see the pictures, it did take me a while to work this out. And as you can see from them, they're not the best. They could have been better. So like you can see, like if you match it up, it does not look good. And this was about, I think, an hour, maybe 2 hours of work. And I think at one point you're just going to have to cut your losses like that. I did do a little problem solving. For example, they didn't have a phone in it, so I used a light bulb. I managed to get the sky shot right and stuff like that. But that's kind of like one of those little things. Another thing I had was the app actually just keep crashing. It turns out from further research, the reason why the app crashes is because my storage space on my phone is not very good. So basically what was I deleted a ton of apps. I did like a boatload of apps and stuff like that. And I basically I deleted all the apps so that the app it worked better. Overall, this was a frustrating task, to be honest. The storyboard section went okay, but this kind of app was very frustrating. But I feel like I did learn a lot from it, and I think if I had the time, I think I could have got this app working, maybe. But it's one of those things where I only have weeks of planning, and I'd rather focus on other parts of it and making these kind of things. And as you can see from the pictures, and probably this week's reflective log thumbnail, they do look quite haunting. So there's another lap. So let's talk about the next task. That was the pre-script plan. I talked about this in my planning week, but the pre-script plan is basically, I'll get it up for you. Here we go. It's basically how I saw it about it. It's just outlining my title. Really bad spelling. as I talked about, I'm working on it. I basically outlined my entire film. My film is broken up into 7 sections, and you see. I've tried and talked about, I further broke it down into song, plot, cinematography, and visual style. So the song is pretty self-explanatory. This project is a lot based around music. So for a lot of these, I looked at a lot of songs. The only exception to this rule is the last sequence, Are You Happy? I talked about this briefly in here. So I won't bore you with the details, but basically, I personally felt that the song Are You Happy was kind of better for the ending. I couldn't really think of anything else. So for that, I didn't do anything else. But for every other song, everything has like a 4 or 5 songs. So, it's kind of looking at your options, stuff like that. And I kind of went to detail why I chose that song. I looked at kind of the plot. This is kind of the raw kind of plot of what's happening. Some are smaller than others. Obviously, these sequences are different lengths. Mr. Blue Sky is not that long, whereas, the Are You Happy sequence, the entire song. And then I broke it up into cinematography. This is how visually raw footage I would film. So the sequences are meant to visually look very different. So Wes Anderson shot used a lot of all the fur, stuff like that, whereas Mr. Blue Sky used a lot of kind of smaller images, kind of create that kinetic energy. So there I went over the visual kind of cinematography song. And the visual style, I kind of use as an opportunity to talk about editing. This is where I talked about the color grading, why I'm doing the color grading, and the VFX, especially in the Are You Happy sequence I talked about, how the words are going to appear on the screen and stuff like that. So it's one of those examples. To get a bit of problem solving, the Wes Anderson sequence, I will just go to that sequence. The Wes Anderson sequence, just to kind of recap for what this section was basically at this point in the narrative, the characters kind of going into the delusional state and they kind of gone into their kind of favorite movie worlds. And this is Wes Anderson. I chose Wes Anderson because basically it's very stylized director and stuff like that. Because I was working out this sequence and what I wanted out of the sequence stylistically was kind of difficult. So what I actually done was done some research on my own. I watched a lot of Wes Anderson films. I think to be specific, I watched The Grand Budapest Hotel, great film where you watched that, and I watched Isle of Dogs and Bottle Rocket. These kind of the 3 sections of Wes Anderson. Bottle Rocket is first, Isle of Dogs being more the animated one, Grand Budapest have been the most popular. And this really kind of helped me work out this sequence, as I talked about in the solution. Working out that really helped me work out what Wes Anderson's style is, so I can best kind of mimic it and really kind of get style in it. So that's kind of how I funded that problem. Another problem I had was narrowing it down, thinking about a range of songs. Because I want you to think about a range of songs. Because I think if you go for your first choice, especially with songs like this, you kind of have, it's difficult to kind of, you go for first choice and it could not be the best and stuff like that. So what I've done was I started thinking, how the solution came out, I started thinking about the broader the themes of it. This is especially prevalent for the surrealist dream sequence. I decided to go for more broader and kind of work out the themes of what I want to do, what surrealism means to me personally with the character. So I looked at bands like Sparks, who I'm a big fan of, very fan surrealist filmmakers, surrealist people. They got Annette, a great movie, stuff like that, and really kind of worked out. This is especially prevalent in the music argument. So how basically I've done the music argument was I looked at 2 songs that are very different. I chose a depressing song because that's the same character at the time, a very kind of upbeat song, and kind of worked out what could clash together. I really had a rough idea of what I wanted to do, but I kind of worked out different options like that. And I decided to go with Creep and Break My Stride that I felt thematically worked well together. So that's another example of kind of me seeing a problem like can't think of songs and keeping broader about it. Okay, so let's get into the third sequence. Third thing I done was the music cue plan. The music cue plan, let's just close all these tabs. So I mentioned last week was basically it's kind of a time code and what is in that song and the action on screen. As you can see, this is very long because I basically broke it down. Every song has a kind of music cue and stuff like that. When I get to script, I'll explain how it works. But basically, there's interluding sections that aren't seen here that kind of connect it all together. Overall, I think this is pretty decent. This was a lot of effort, and I feel like this was a bulk of my time because once I built this, everything kind of crawled off that. So the short lists, things like that, were a lot easier to do the script when I had this basis, but it did take me a while. I would say about an hour, maybe 2 hours per section. Some were a bit shorter than others. the Are You Happy sequence took me around nearly 3 hours because it was so difficult. I listened to something over and over again. I really wanted to match up and really work out those regions and really kind of make it timed so perfectly. I think I succeeded. One of the main issues I had was really hard to start as I talk about time up sequence. And what I actually done was a lot of these songs are from movies. Just because I'm a big fan of movies and stuff like that. For example, Mr. Lonely is actually from Killer Chillionaire, a film I really liked. So I basically worked at these movies and kind of drew influence for how they use music inside of it. Obviously, this is not a match comparison because they use movies non-diegetically. This means it's not in the world where I use it diegetically when it is in the world. But I kind of looked at how they done cinematography and how they blend that style. And I think a lot of thinking and really working out what is the core of this music and what's the beats and stuff like that really helped me plan out that music cue plan. Talking about music cue plan, the music argument, just to recap music argument, basically the idea of the music argument that was here was basically it would be the character kind of the character and the antagonist kind of conflicting over music, and that'd be having an argument that'd be visually represented by two different songs. So I talked about just now in the pre-script plan. This is how it all kind of connects together. It is I chose Creep and Break My Stride, and how I first tackled this with working both of them at the same time. I found this really difficult because it's kind of like how do you blend these things together? And what I ended up deciding on was actually kind of a bit of a dumb, kind of clever workaround. Is I basically built the sequence just with Creep, then just with Break My Stride, working out for like about a minute how long these sequences work, and I basically shoved them together. So I cut out a bit from Creep, a bit from Break My Stride, and you end up with this very surrealist kind of feel because you cut between these two music videos basically. And I think that really better helped me further my idea and stuff like that. So that's an example of problem solving actually benefiting the overall sequence. So that was the music cue plan. The main problem was basically timing, stuff like that. And it's just one of those things where you naturally kind of work it out, stuff like that. Really kind of it's taking your time, especially as the music cue is such a big part of this plot. So let's get into kind of a smaller task, and that's the equipment list. Okay, so the equipment list. This is a small task. Basically, equipment list is, as I talked about in my planning. It's basically a list of equipment. So, for example, my shoot's very simple. It's only got a Sony camera, tripod, video wireless mic, advanced audio, mini film, and stuff like that. The kind of issue I had was I couldn't work out the right way of recording audio, specifically the audio to record for the voice. I really wanted clean audio for the voice and stuff like that. And it's such a big part of the film, and I really wanted to be able to mess around with it, obviously in Audacity. And the other program I completely forgotten, and I'll be experimenting with next week. So basically what I'd done was I'd done some research, just like Googling, stuff like that. We have a department at our college that's full of equipment, kind of went for that equipment, messed around with some stuff, kind of worked out what does what. And I ended up using Marantz. I think I previously mentioned Marantz last week on the plane shoot that was used, but I think Marantz is the best way to record audio. It calls clean audio, it's very easy to use, and I think it's going to be best for this thing. So equipment list, that was a pretty small kind of thing that, like, look, it's just a tiny chart. There's not really much to talk about. So next up is the script. So the script, where is it? There it is. The script was a challenge on it. I think I talked about this way back in opportunities on my website, and these reflective blogs and throughout this kind of website is that one of the skills I want to improve is my screenwriting. Because I always feel like my screenwriting is kind of weak because I'm a person who mostly relies on visuals. So I really tried for the script. As you can see, it's not that long just because more visual based, but the key moments in it are this end sequence that is really kind of where I really tried to kind of go for that style and stuff like that. So the script writing, the last confrontation scene I was talking about, this was difficult for me to write. This was a very serious scene. I don't really work well in a serious tone. I mostly write comedies, but I really wanted to push myself, and that was part of this, was making something serious. So this is kind of when, as I talk about opportunities, this is where I really stepped up my game of script writing. And I think at the end, I think this worked out really well. It's very simple, but I really wanted it to kind of cut to the bone and really kind of call out the character and really just kind of be a hit to the audience and really emotional. So one of the kind of ways that I've done it was I actually looked at similar scenes where kind of the character is being confronted for their like kind of like I basically look at sequences where you have characters who aren't morally good, but they're not terrible people being kind of confronted for their things. Specifically, I looked at a scene from BoJack Horseman where BoJack's titular character kind of gets called out, and actually the line, "I don't know what else there is to say, man," actually directly comes on the BoJack. And I looked at this, how they done it, and basically drew my own influence on it, kind of messed around with my own style, really worked out dramatically, put it into it. And that's one of those things where it's like, I think it's fine to admit that you can't do something, and I kind of worked around it and gone, hey, you know, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is how I kind of take from it. But apart from that, the script's actually pretty well written, actually. I really like how the voice is kind of very limiting in dialogue, but it kind of, for example, you know, when it talks, it's very present, it's very simple, it's very kind of hits you. And that's how I wanted it to be in the movie, where it kind of just comes out of nowhere and just kind of hits you like a gut punch. So that was a script. I thought I didn't really say much about the script. I thought it was pretty good apart from that kind of nugget. But let's get on to the next thing. So the next thing was shot list. So the shot list, this is a massive. This was a lot of work. As you can see, I haven't fully finished the shot list. I basically, all I have to do is put a scene number and the shot number, that's me exactly the same, into it. But it's one of those tasks I will do. But right now, I just can't be bothered. But as you see, there is 85 shots in this movie. It's the biggest project I've undertook. I think last year's F&P, the night shift, was around 40 shots. So we're working on double, and that was very stressful. And that's the longest film I made up to that point, up to this point. So yeah, the shot list was a big task. I think I've done pretty well with talking overall. I really like it. I tried to really blend in the music cue and my own natural things. This kind of leads into the problem. Was kind of working, working out the in-betweens. So as I talk about the music cue plan, as we're coming back to that, because I'm good at coming back to things. The shot list was basically the music cue plan, but with all the in-between sections. So the in-between sections are where the character, there's no music in the way, because the music cue only counts for scenes when it is song playing. That's about, I think it's like 70% of the movie. Let's say the other 30%, this is where the shot list comes into play and how those kind of scenes interweave. And the kind of clever idea I had was I wanted to naturally flow into one scene. I didn't want it divided by chapters. I didn't want it to go from one location to the other. Kind of like, you know, I only does it twice. I like the idea that it naturally goes on and on. Like it's one day. Because I feel like that plays into surrealism and the kind of character's mindset and really plays better into the ending. So basically what I thought about was how can you loosely connect these? So I thought, you know, characters turning their head. Naturally going to POV shots and I'm messing with the audience, really playing into a surrealist film. So I think it's one of those things where like the problem I had was working out to connect everything. And the more I thought about it, took a step back, looked at think about the entire film overall, I really worked out to do those connected kind of things. And I think the film actually come out for better, in my opinion, because everything it kind of flows better and it feels very much more surrealist that I really wanted to do with these films. So yeah, that's the shot list. The shot list, big task. Interesting fact, how I done the shot list was a bit weird. I done it all first, but you see these storyboard numbers. I done this after the storyboards are done, just because it just makes it easy and stuff like that, matches up better and stuff like that. It's just an interesting fact. But let's get into the next task. So the next task is the character profiles. I think. So yeah, the character profiles. Character profiles basically, there's only 2 characters in my film, but these kind of outline the characters, and specifically it's more of an outfit kind of thing, but these outline the outfits and stuff like this. I think this is actually really good. It's very detailed. I tried to put a lot of detail into it, as I talked about in my website for our film, where I thought about the context. I really want these to be fully fleshed characters. I want these to be 3-dimensional, real characters. I don't want this to be me. I want this to be a 3-dimensional, fully rounded character, some really immersed character in the world. Because this is, at the end of the day, a character study. So I really tried to think a lot about their personality and how they look. Talking about how they look was, it was difficult for me to work out the exact look, because I kind of have a very specific style in mind for these characters and how they look. I feel like colour and stuff like that is a big part of it, and how they look is a big part of it. There's actually influence on Baby Driver. That's a big influence in this film. But Baby Driver uses outfits really well to communicate something. So, for example, when babies cross between two worlds, he wears black and white because, thematically that shows cross between two worlds. So I kind of took influence in that when I was looking at the outfits and kind of thought I would use a baseline for these outfits and grew upon that. So, for example, a character of the voice was in red. So what I basically started thinking about how can I incorporate red? So I looked at 4 designs, and as you can see, each design was not chosen for a specific reason. I finally decided on a more simple kind of Hawaiian shirt kind of design that I like because it's very simple, but it's still stylistically proves the point of red being bad, therefore tricking the audience. I have some really, really out there ideas. As you see, devil wings, just underwear and stuff like that. But like for everything, I've got about 3 to 4 designs, and this is kind of the process of working out what's the best for it, what best represents the characters and stuff like that. And you can kind of see my thought process going down it and going, no, this is too casual, this is too smart, and kind of working out a mix of both of them. One problem I had was working out the voice. I talked about it. I really found it difficult working out the voice because the voice isn't meant for like that long. But like when it comes in, it has to have this presence and really communicate what I want it to be. So I kind of took influence from other media, specifically how other media kind of portrays the devil. I think a good example would be the devil, like Lucifer, or things like that, or like shows that show the devil but not like full devil form. I want to become more casual and stuff like that. So I took influence in that. Basically, I found that a lot of those shows use red to kind of communicate danger and stuff like that. And as I want to basically trick the audience thinking this is a bad thing, I kind of based it around red. As I talked about before, I kind of ran with that red idea with the whole Hawaiian theme. So overall, the character profiles, I think they're really good. They're very detailed. They make a lot of sense. I've really thought about design. I haven't just thrown together an outfit like, oh, just the outfit. You can see I put a lot of effort into working out the design of these characters. So let's get on to the next thing, that is risk assessments as location wrecking. Just before we go into that, I'll go into some smaller things that I've done. Here's a production notice. This is really standard. That's why I haven't really given its own section, because it's a production notice. I'll put this up for the locations that are outside the Discovery Centre, just to warn people that filming is going on. It's nothing that interesting. I grouped the risk assessment and the location recce together because thematically they had the same issue as working out the location. My primary location is on the Discovery Centre, mostly because I'm nearby it. It thematically works what I want to do, and it's a good location, so you can legally film there because it's a county park. But I found working out like the risks and stuff like that kind of difficult. Working out doing a location record kind of difficult. So what I basically done was I actually visited a location, I walked around, I talked to the rangers about filming, made sure I could film them, they're completely fine with me filming. I better understood the location. So yeah, that's a good example of me just kind of, it's a small issue that covered both of them, but it's kind of like one of those things, not giving up and going, oh, I'll just make this up. I'd done my own research. I took time out to go into that location and really better understand it, because this is a core location where I'm filming. Obviously, the second location is my own house. This is a lot easier because I lived here for 21 years. So I can talk about this for days. So let's get into the next task. That would be the storyboards. Storyboards were massive. I actually just got the storyboards done. I'll show you the paper. Here's the paper format. The storyboards were massive. As I talked about when I shot this, there's 80 shots. That means 80 storyboards. 8 pages, 6 per. There's a lot of storyboards. And this is an overwhelming task, I'll be honest. This was, apart from the music cue plan, probably the most challenging task. It's a lot for me, and how I always kind of get overwhelmed by this. So what I basically done is I divide it up into sections using my pre-script plan. So that comes in again, it helps every aspect of the film. I break it into 7 chunks. So I do a chunk, I take a break, kind of relax, maybe do some other smaller work. Then another chunk, really break it up, and I felt that meant that all the storyboards came out looking good, not like I was rushing at the end because I'm getting fed up. So that's another example of a problem is massively overwhelming task, and the solution is just kind of breaking it down. you know, understanding it and just kind of taking that time to understand the production schedule. So the storyboards, but overall I thought storyboards were good. They're very easy communicating what I want to do. They have showing movement. Obviously, I use arrows. I use double arrows if it was fast walking. I just, you know, because I'm here it's running, whereas here it's just walking, stuff like that. And I thought these storyboards are really actually going to help because this film is so very visual. So let's get into the next task, and that was the production schedule. Production schedule was easy task, I would say. It was basically outlining when I'd be filming, stuff like that. As you can see, it's broken up into two parts. It's time, test, date. So time, date, example 27th, 10:30. Crew, scene, location, equipment, props, costume, and other. This was kind of where other I used for. I used once actually for health and safety, just so I could understand that, but other wasn't used that much. To get into one of the problems with this I had was I found it difficult to time everything out. I'm not very good at. It took me a while to work out what I wanted out of these, but that is working out. You can't, because normally I do film A to B into order, but in this case, I think it's better to film in a different order. So what I basically done was, I done the outdoor stuff because this is time sensitive stuff. Outdoor stuff, obviously, when I'm filming, I can't really do it after 3 because it's schools, and the daylight, stuff like that. So I can't film at night. Whereas indoors film, I can film at night because it's easy. So I basically done it first. So with the outdoors stuff first. I actually done the voices first, and I filmed all the voice first. So the idea is that I can listen to the voice, so I can time it up. And this kind of helped me kind of do it because it's the outdoors done how many hours, stuff like that. And I did have extra time for it than I would need, just because one of those things is better to have more time than less. And I do have time for reshoots, pick up shots, things like that, kind of what actual people have, you know, professional makers have as reshoots, they have that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's my shot list, my production schedule. So overall decent production schedule. So let's get into the kind of final overall wrap up. Sorry, this reflective vlog's been a bit weird and spacey. I'll repeat it again, I am very ill, so this is a very difficult reflective vlog for me to do. So let's talk about the advantages. Advantage would be that storyboarding shot list. I thought the shot list was really detailed. I really liked it. It is able to take on the music cue plan and how they thematically connect and everything like that to go really well. And same for the shot storyboards, that kind of extension of the shot list. I thought they were well drawn. I thought I was able to really kind of push through the difficulty and stuff like that and really visually understand it. Disadvantage was the script. I'm kind of very disappointed about this. As I talked about opportunities, I really wanted this opportunity to do the script. I think I did improve. I think, you know, I think there's a merit to say that, you know, I still went somewhere, I still tried, and it's something I will work on quite a lot more. I tried to work on scripts more. There's a quick note, I'm doing a segment for Serious, as I talked about last week with the playing thing, doing my own segment, and I'll be writing scripts for that. So it's one of those things where it's an ongoing issue that I'm going to be working on to really improve my script. But this week, it just really did not come up. So target review. Last week's target was finishing all the planning, have a better idea for the film, really try to focus on small details and experiment. I think I really met this target. Obviously, I finished off with the planning, as I've just been talking about for like about half an hour, so going on so long. And I really do try to focus on the smaller details. As this, actually, the biggest example has been shot list and storyboards. Every little aspect for that, how does it thematically come together? And I think it's a really solid thing. So that's target met. Okay, so target the next week is really work out the program, play around with 2 effects, all the programs, work out some unique VFX, especially for the opening. So next week I will be doing the experimentation for the actual practical techniques. So you might remember a couple of weeks ago, the process research report, experimentation broke up to 2 parts, practical and planning. I've done the planning with storyboards, now it's time to do the practical. Just to recap what the practical was, it was using programs to basically mess around the audio and using programs to mess around the VFX. So to go back to this target, what I basically want to do is I want to take the programs and mess around on 2 different effects on it to really work out how the big range of it, what I could do and stuff like that. And then obviously for the VFX, I want to experiment with what kind of VFX I want to do, especially for the opening. That is a much VFX heavy one, apart from the last sequence. But this is kind of very much, I want a lot of style and stuff like that. So this overall will be my reflective vlog for week 7. So it went on a bit, and so it's not as edited down as usual. I probably will be back to normal, kind of edited down reflective vlogs via next week. But thank you for watching. This is overall what I've done this week, and that has been week 7.